Serafina stood at the entrance of the Ashford Estate ballroom. Her gloved hand rested on the golden doorframe. Her heart beat hard in her chest. The music inside was loud. Violins played a waltz. Laughter echoed through the marble halls. She wanted to turn around. She wanted to run. But she didn't. Because tonight, everything would change. Her fingers brushed against the heavy sapphire ring on her left hand. It was hidden beneath her white silk glove. The metal felt warm against her skin. The weight of it reminded her why she was here. The Duke of Greymont had given her this ring 3 days ago, and no one knew. Not yet. Serafina took a slow breath. She smoothed the front of her gown. It was deep emerald green. The fabric shimmered under the candlelight. The neckline was modest but elegant. Her dark hair was pinned up with pearl combs. She looked like she belonged here, but she didn't feel like it. Not after what happened last season. Not after him. She stepped inside. The ballroom was enormous. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. They sparkled like stars. The walls were covered in gold trim and silk drapes. Men in black tailcoats stood in groups. Women in colorful gowns danced in the center of the room. Everyone looked happy. Serafina walked slowly along the edge of the crowd. She kept her chin up. She forced a small smile. Her eyes scanned the room. She was looking for one person, and she hoped she wouldn't find him. But of course, she did. He was standing near the refreshment table. His blonde hair was perfectly combed. His blue eyes were sharp and bright. He wore a dark grey coat with silver buttons. He looked just as handsome as she remembered. Lord Edmund Harlow, her ex-fiancé. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't seen him in 6 months. Not since he broke their engagement in front of half the town. Not since he told her she wasn't good enough. Not since he married someone else 2 weeks later. Serafina's hand tightened into a fist. She should leave. But then Edmund's eyes found hers. He froze for just a second. Then his mouth curved into a slow, cruel smile. He started walking toward her. Serafina's breath caught. She wanted to move. She wanted to disappear. But her feet stayed still. Edmund stopped in front of her. He looked her up and down. His smile grew wider. "Serafina," he said. His voice was smooth and cold. "What a surprise." She lifted her chin. "Lord Harlow." He tilted his head. "I didn't think you'd come tonight. I thought you'd be hiding somewhere in the countryside." Her jaw tightened. "I have nothing to hide from." "Don't you?" He laughed softly. "Tell me, Serafina, how have you been?" "I've been well." "Have you?" He leaned in slightly. His voice dropped. "Still unmarried, then?" The words hit her like a slap. She felt her face go hot. Her hands shook, but she didn't look away. "That's none of your concern," she said quietly. Edmund laughed again. This time it was louder. A few people nearby turned to look. "Of course it's not," he said. "I'm just surprised. I thought surely someone would have taken pity on you by now." Serafina's chest burned. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tell him how wrong he was. She wanted to show him the ring on her finger. But she didn't. Because someone else did it for her. A deep voice spoke from behind her. "I believe you're mistaken, Lord Harlow." Serafina's heart stopped. She knew that voice. She turned slowly, and there he was. Thorne Ashford, the Duke of Greymont, stood tall and still. His dark hair was brushed back from his face. His gray eyes were cold and sharp. He wore a black coat with silver embroidery. His jaw was strong. His shoulders were broad. He looked like a king. And he was looking directly at Edmund. Serafina's breath left her lungs. Thorne stepped forward. He moved with slow, controlled grace. He stopped beside Serafina. His hand brushed against hers for just a moment. It was enough. Edmund's smile faded. His eyes darted between Thorne and Serafina. Confusion flickered across his face. "Your Grace," Edmund said. His voice was quieter now. He bowed his head slightly. I didn't realize you were attending tonight. This is my estate, Thorn said. His tone was flat. Of course I'm attending. Edmund's face turned red. Of course, forgive me. Thorn didn't respond. His gaze stayed fixed on Edmund. His expression didn't change. The silence stretched. People around them stopped talking. They turned to watch. Whispers started. Serafina felt her heart pounding. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know what Thorn was doing. Then Thorn reached down. He took Serafina's left hand. Slowly, he pulled off her glove. The sapphire ring gleamed under the candlelight. The entire room went silent. Serafina's face burned. Her breath came fast. She wanted to pull her hand away, but Thorn held it firmly. He looked at Edmund. Lady Serafina is engaged, Thorn said. His voice was low and cold. To me. Edmund's mouth fell open. His eyes went wide. He stared at the ring, then at Thorn, then at Serafina. What? Edmund whispered. Thorn didn't answer. He lifted Serafina's hand and kissed the back of it. His lips were warm. His eyes never left Edmund's face. I suggest you remember that, Thorn said quietly. Then he turned. He placed Serafina's hand on his arm. He led her away from Edmund, away from the crowd, away from the whispers. Serafina's legs felt weak. Her mind was spinning. She didn't understand what had just happened. Thorn didn't say a word. He guided her through the ballroom. He walked toward a pair of glass doors on the far side. They opened onto a balcony. He pushed the doors open. Cool night air rushed over Serafina's face. She gasped. Her hands trembled. Thorn let go of her arm. He stepped back. He folded his hands behind his back. He looked out over the dark gardens. Serafina stared at him. What was that? She whispered. Thorn didn't turn around. That was the beginning. The beginning of what? Of our arrangement. Serafina's stomach dropped. You said we would wait. You said we wouldn't announce it yet. Plans change, Thorn said calmly. Why? Her voice rose. Why would you do that? Finally, Thorn turned to face her. His grey eyes were sharp. His jaw was tight. Because he insulted you, Thorn said. His voice was low and dangerous. And I won't allow that. Serafina's breath caught. She didn't know what to say. Thorn stepped closer. He looked down at her. His expression softened just slightly. You are going to be my wife, he said quietly. No one will speak to you that way again. Serafina's heart twisted. She looked down at the ring on her finger. It felt heavier now. I didn't need you to save me, she said. I know, Thorn replied. But I did it anyway. She looked up at him. His face was calm, but there was something else in his eyes, something she couldn't name. Why? She whispered. Thorn didn't answer. He turned and walked back inside. Serafina stood alone on the balcony. The music from the ballroom drifted through the open doors. The night air was cold. Her hands were shaking. But she didn't know if it was from anger or something else. Because something had just shifted, and she wasn't sure if she could stop it. 3 days ago, Serafina had been sitting in her family's parlour. The room was small and plain. The furniture was old. The curtains were faded. Her mother sat across from her. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her face was pale and tired. We don't have much time, her mother had said softly. The creditors are coming next week. Serafina's chest had tightened. She knew what that meant. They would lose the house. They would lose everything. Her father had died 2 years ago. He left them with nothing but debts. Her older brother had tried to help, but he had his own family to care for. There was no money left. Serafina had tried to find work, but no one would hire a woman from a disgraced family. Not after Edmund broke their engagement. Not after everyone learned that her father had lied about her dowry. She had been trapped. Until the letter came. It was delivered by a footman in a black uniform. The envelope was thick and cream-colored. The seal was a silver wolf, the Duke of Greymont's seal. Serafina had stared at it for a long time. She didn't know why the Duke would write to her. She had only met him once, at a garden party 2 years ago. He had barely spoken to her. But she opened the letter, and everything changed. Lady Serafina, I am in need of a wife. You are in need of security. I propose an arrangement that will benefit us both. If you agree, you will become the Duchess of Greymont. Your family's debts will be cleared. You will have a home, an income, and a title. In return, I ask only for your presence at public events and your discretion in private matters. You will not be required to fulfill the traditional duties of a wife unless you choose to. This is a business arrangement, nothing more. If you are interested, meet me at Greymont House tomorrow at noon. Thorn, Ashford, Duke of Greymont. Serafina had read the letter 3 times. She didn't understand it. Why would the Duke offer this? Why her? But she didn't have the luxury of questions. She went to Greymont House the next day. The estate was enormous. It sat on a hill overlooking the river. The house was made of grey stone. Tall windows lined the walls. Gardens stretched out in every direction. A butler led Serafina inside. The entrance hall was huge. Marble floors gleamed under the sunlight. Portraits of stern-faced men hung on the walls. The butler brought her to a study. It was dark and quiet. Shelves full of books lined the walls. A large desk sat in the center. Behind it stood Thorn. He looked just as she remembered. Tall, cold, impossibly handsome. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Serafina sat, her hands folded in her lap. Her heart was pounding. Thorn sat across from her. He folded his hands on the desk. His grey eyes studied her. You read my letter, he said. Yes. Do you have questions? Many, Serafina said. Her voice was steady. But I'll start with one. Why me? Thorn's expression didn't change. Because you need help, and I need a wife who won't expect love. The words stung, but they were true. And why don't you want love? Serafina asked. Thorn's jaw tightened. That's not your concern. If I'm going to marry you, it is. For the first time, Thorn's eyes flickered with something. Surprise, maybe, or respect. I don't believe in love, he said quietly. It's a weakness, a distraction. I won't allow it in my life. Serafina stared at him. His face was hard, his voice was cold, but there was something underneath, something broken. She should have said no. She should have walked away, but she didn't. I accept, she said. Thorn nodded. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small box. He placed it on the desk. Inside was the sapphire ring. Wear this, he said, but don't tell anyone yet. I'll announce the engagement when I'm ready. Serafina picked up the ring. It was heavy and cold. She slipped it onto her finger. When will that be? She asked. Soon. But Serafina didn't know soon meant 3 days later, at a ball, in front of everyone, including Edmund. When Serafina walked back into the ballroom, every eye was on her. The music had stopped. People stood in clusters. They whispered behind fans and gloved hands. Their eyes followed her as she moved. Serafina kept her chin up. She kept her face calm. But inside, her heart raced. Thorn was standing near the center of the room. He was talking to an older man in a red coat. He looked calm, unbothered. Serafina didn't know where to go. She didn't know what to do. A woman stepped in front of her. She was tall and elegant. Her dress was pale pink silk. Her blonde hair was pinned in perfect curls. Her blue eyes were sharp. Lady Seraphina, the woman said. Her voice was sweet, but her smile was not. What a surprise! Seraphina recognized her. Lady Catherine Pembroke, one of Edmund's close friends, one of the women who had laughed when the engagement was broken. Lady Catherine, Seraphina said politely. Catherine's eyes dropped to Seraphina's hand. The ring gleamed under the light. So it's true, Catherine said softly. You're engaged to the Duke. Yes. Catherine tilted her head. How fortunate for you. The word dripped with venom. Seraphina's jaw tightened. I think so. And how did this happen? Catherine asked. I didn't realize you even knew the Duke. We've known each other for some time. Have you? Catherine's smile widened. How strange. No one saw you together. No one heard anything. And yet, suddenly you're engaged. Seraphina's stomach twisted. She knew what Catherine was implying. She was suggesting the engagement was a lie, or worse, that Seraphina had trapped the Duke somehow. I don't owe you an explanation, Seraphina said quietly. Catherine laughed. It was light and cruel. Of course not, but people will talk, Lady Seraphina. They always do. She leaned in closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. And they'll wonder why the Duke chose you. A woman with no dowry, no connections, no prospects. Seraphina's hands curled into fists. Her nails dug into her palms. Perhaps he chose me because he wanted to, she said. Catherine's smile didn't waver. Perhaps. Or perhaps he pities you. Before Seraphina could respond, a hand touched her shoulder. She turned. Thorn stood beside her. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold. Lady Catherine, he said. His voice was flat. I believe your husband is looking for you. Catherine's smile faltered. She glanced across the room. Then she looked back at Thorn. Her face turned pink. Of course, Your Grace, she said. She curtsied quickly, then she hurried away. Seraphina let out a slow breath. Thank you, she said quietly. Thorn didn't respond. He placed his hand on her lower back. He guided her toward the edge of the room. We're leaving, he said. What, now? Yes, but people are staring, Thorn said. His voice was low. And they'll only get worse. We'll leave before it becomes unbearable. Seraphina wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. Thorn led her toward the doors. The crowd parted as they walked. Whispers followed them. Seraphina kept her eyes forward. She didn't look at anyone, but she felt their stares. She felt their judgment. And she felt something else. She felt Thorn's hand on her back. Steady, strong, protective. For the first time that night, she didn't feel alone. The carriage was dark and quiet. The only sound was the rattle of wheels on cobblestone. Seraphina sat on one side. Thorn sat across from her. His face was in shadow. His hands rested on his knees. Seraphina stared out the window. The city lights passed by in a blur. I'm sorry, she said softly. Thorn's head turned slightly. For what? For making you leave early. For causing a scene. You didn't cause a scene, Thorn said. Lord Harlow did. Seraphina looked at him. His face was still hidden in shadow, but she could see the sharp line of his jaw. Why did you defend me? She asked. You could have stayed silent. I told you, Thorn said. You're going to be my wife. I won't allow anyone to insult you. But it's just an arrangement, Seraphina said. You said so yourself. It's not real. Thorn was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned forward. The moonlight from the window fell across his face. His grey eyes met hers. It's real enough, he said quietly. Seraphina's breath caught. Her heart beat faster. What does that mean? She whispered. Thorn didn't answer. He leaned back into the shadows. The carriage fell silent again. Serafina's mind raced. She didn't understand him. She didn't understand any of this. But she knew one thing. Something had changed between them tonight, and she wasn't sure if that was good or bad. The next morning, Serafina woke in her room at Greymont House. The bed was enormous. The sheets were soft. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows. She sat up slowly. Her head ached. Her body felt heavy. Last night had been a blur. She remembered Edmund's cruel smile. She remembered Thorne's cold voice. She remembered the ring gleaming under the candlelight. She looked down at her hand. The sapphire ring was still there. A knock came at the door. "Come in," Serafina called. A young maid entered. She carried a tray with tea and toast. She set it on the table beside the bed. She curtsied. "His Grace requests your presence in the study after breakfast, my lady," the maid said. Serafina's stomach tightened. "Did he say why?" "No, my lady." The maid curtsied again and left. Serafina ate slowly. Her hands shook. She didn't know what Thorne wanted. She didn't know if he regretted last night. After she finished, she dressed in a simple blue gown. She pinned her hair back. She took a deep breath. Then she went to the study. Thorne was standing by the window. His hands were clasped behind his back. He didn't turn when she entered. "You wanted to see me?" Serafina asked. "Sit," Thorne said. Serafina sat in the same chair as before. Her hands folded in her lap. Her heart pounded. Thorne finally turned. He walked to the desk. He sat down. His face was calm, but his eyes were troubled. "There's something you need to know," he said. Serafina's chest tightened. "What is it?" Thorne was silent for a moment. Then he spoke. "5 years ago I was engaged," he said quietly. Serafina's breath caught. She hadn't expected that. "Her name was Isabel," Thorne continued. "She was the daughter of an earl. Beautiful. Charming. Everyone loved her." He paused. His jaw tightened. "Including me." Serafina stayed silent. She didn't know what to say. "We were supposed to marry in the spring," Thorne said. "But 2 weeks before the wedding she disappeared." Serafina's eyes widened. "What?" "She left a letter," Thorne said. His voice was flat. "She said she didn't love me. She said she never had. She said she only agreed to marry me because of my title and my money." Serafina's heart ached. She could see the pain in his eyes, even though he tried to hide it. "She ran away with another man," Thorne said. "A stable hand. Someone with nothing." He looked down at his hands. "I was humiliated," he said quietly. "The entire ton laughed. They called me a fool. They said I couldn't even keep my own fiancé." Serafina's throat tightened. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Thorne shook his head. "Don't be. It taught me a lesson." "What lesson?" "That love is a lie," Thorne said. His voice turned cold. "It's a pretty word people use to justify betrayal. I won't make that mistake again." Serafina stared at him. Her chest ached. She understood now. She understood why he wanted an arrangement, why he didn't want love. But she also saw something else. She saw how much it still hurt him. "That's why you offered me this arrangement," Serafina said softly. "Because I won't expect love. Because I won't hurt you." Thorne's eyes met hers. "Yes." Serafina looked down at the ring on her finger. Her mind was racing. She had agreed to this arrangement because she needed security. She needed to save her family. But now she realized something. Thorne needed something too. He needed to feel safe, and she didn't know if she could give him that. 2 days later, Serafina received an invitation. It was from Lady Catherine Pembroke. She was hosting a garden party, and she had invited Serafina and Thorne. Serafina stared at the invitation. Her stomach twisted. "I don't want to go," she said. Thorn looked up from his desk. "Why not?" "Because Lady Catherine hates me," Seraphina said. "She'll only use the party to humiliate me." Thorn set down his pen. He stood. He walked over to her. "Then we'll go," he said calmly, "and we'll show her she can't." Seraphina looked up at him. "You want to go?" "Yes." "Why?" Thorn's eyes were sharp. "Because if we hide, people will think we're ashamed. They'll think the engagement is a lie." Seraphina's hands tightened. "Isn't it?" Thorn was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "No," he said softly. "It's not." Seraphina's breath caught. She didn't know what to say. Thorn reached out. He took her hand. His fingers were warm. "You're going to be my wife," he said quietly. "And I won't let anyone make you feel small." Seraphina's heart twisted. She looked down at their hands. His touch was gentle, but firm. She nodded slowly. "All right, we'll go." The garden party was held at the Pembroke estate. It was a sunny afternoon. The gardens were full of flowers. White tents were set up on the lawn. Tables were covered with tea and pastries. Seraphina wore a pale yellow gown. Her hair was pinned with ribbons. She held Thorn's arm as they walked through the gardens. People stared. They whispered, but no one approached. Lady Catherine stood near the center of the garden. She wore a white dress with pink ribbons. She smiled when she saw them. "Your Grace," she said sweetly. She curtsied. "Lady Seraphina, how lovely to see you," and he kissed her. Seraphina gasped. Her hands pressed against his chest. His lips were warm and firm. His hand cupped the back of her head. The kiss was slow, deep, full of something Seraphina couldn't name. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. Thorn's forehead rested against hers. His eyes were closed. "I don't know," he whispered. "I don't know why I care, but I do." Seraphina's heart ached. Her hands clutched his coat. "Thorn," she whispered. He opened his eyes. They were full of pain and fear. "Don't," he said quietly. "Don't ask me for more. I can't give it." Seraphina's chest tightened. She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him it was too late, that she was already falling for him. But she didn't, because she could see how much he was struggling. So she just nodded. Thorn stepped back. He turned and walked toward the stairs. Seraphina stood alone in the entrance hall. Her lips still tingled. Her heart still raced. And she realized something. This arrangement wasn't just changing her life, it was changing her heart. The next morning, a letter arrived. It was addressed to Thorn. The seal was broken. The handwriting was elegant. Seraphina saw it on the desk in the study. She wasn't supposed to read it, but something pulled her closer. She picked it up. "Thorn, I heard about your engagement. Congratulations. I hope she makes you happy. I hope she's everything I wasn't. But I wonder, does she know the truth about you? Does she know what you did? Or are you hiding from her, just like you hid from me? Isabel." Seraphina's blood went cold. Isabel, Thorn's ex-fiancée, the one who left him. Seraphina's hands shook. She read the letter again. Her mind raced. Does she know what you did? What did that mean? What had Thorn done? Before she could think, the door opened. Thorn walked in. He stopped when he saw her holding the letter. His face went pale. Then his eyes turned hard. "Put that down," he said quietly. Seraphina's heart pounded. "What does this mean? What did you do?" "It's none of your concern." "You said this was real," Seraphina said. Her voice shook. "You said you cared, but you're still hiding things from me." Thorn's jaw clenched. I'm protecting you. From what? From me. Serafina's breath caught. She stared at him. His face was hard, but his eyes were full of pain. Tell me the truth, she whispered. Please. Thorn was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. Isabel didn't just leave me, he said quietly. I drove her away. Serafina's chest tightened. What do you mean? I was cold, Thorn said. His voice was flat. I didn't show her affection. I didn't tell her I loved her. I thought actions were enough. I thought providing for her, protecting her was enough. He looked down at his hands. But it wasn't, he said. She felt trapped. She felt unloved, so she left. Serafina's throat tightened. Thorn. I don't blame her, Thorn said. I blame myself. I failed her, and I won't fail you. Serafina stepped closer. She reached out. She touched his hand. You're not failing me, she said softly. Thorn looked up. His eyes were full of doubt. How do you know? He whispered. Because you're trying, Serafina said. You're here. You're honest. That's enough. Thorn stared at her. His hand tightened around hers. Then he pulled her into his arms. Serafina gasped. She pressed her face against his chest. His heart was beating hard. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Yes, you do, Serafina said. And for the first time, she believed it. But someone else didn't believe it. Edmund Harlow stood in his study. He held a glass of brandy. His face was twisted with anger. He had heard about the engagement. He had seen the ring. He had watched Serafina walk away with the Duke, and it made him sick. Serafina was supposed to be ruined. She was supposed to be forgotten. She was supposed to disappear. But instead, she was going to be a duchess. Edmund's hand tightened around the glass. It cracked. He threw it against the wall. It shattered. His wife, Lady Margaret, stood in the doorway. She flinched. Edmund, she said softly. What's wrong? Nothing, Edmund snapped. But that was a lie. Everything was wrong. Because Edmund had a secret. He had broken his engagement to Serafina because she had no dowry, because her family was poor. But that wasn't the whole truth. He had also broken it because someone paid him to. A man named Lord Cresswell, a man who hated the Duke of Greymont, a man who wanted to see Thorn suffer. Lord Cresswell had paid Edmund to humiliate Serafina, to ruin her reputation, to make sure she could never marry anyone of importance. And Edmund had done it. But now, Serafina was engaged to Thorn, and Lord Cresswell was furious. Edmund had received a letter that morning. You failed. Fix this, or I'll ruin you. Edmund's hands shook. He didn't know what to do. But he knew one thing. He had to stop the wedding, no matter what it took. A week before the wedding, Serafina received a letter. It was unsigned. The handwriting was messy. If you marry the Duke, your family will pay. Serafina's blood turned cold. Her hands shook. She read it again. Your family will pay. She ran to find Thorn. He was in the stables. He was brushing his horse. Thorn, Serafina gasped. She held out the letter. Thorn took it. His face darkened, his jaw clenched. Who sent this? Serafina whispered. I don't know, Thorn said. His voice was hard. But I'll find out. He crumpled the letter. He threw it to the ground. You're not going to stop the wedding, he said. But my family will be protected, Thorn said. He stepped closer. He took her shoulders. I won't let anyone hurt you, or them. Serafina's eyes filled with tears. What if you can't stop them? Thorn's eyes softened. He cupped her face. I will, he said quietly. I promise. But that night, something happened. Serafina's mother sent word. Their house had been broken into. Nothing was stolen, but a message was left on the door. This is just the beginning. Serafina's heart sank. Her worst fear was coming true. Someone was targeting her family, and she didn't know how to stop it. Thorn hired investigators. He sent guards to protect Serafina's family. He questioned everyone who had access to the house, but no one knew anything. Serafina couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She spent every night staring at the ceiling. Thorn stayed by her side. He held her hand. He whispered reassurances, but Serafina could see the worry in his eyes. One night, they sat in the study. A fire crackled in the hearth. Thorn paced back and forth. "I don't understand," he said. "Who would do this? Who wants to stop the wedding?" Serafina's mind raced. She thought about everyone who had a reason to hate her. Lady Catherine, Edmund, Isabel. But none of them seemed capable of this. Then Serafina remembered something. "Edmund," she said slowly. Thorn stopped. He turned to her. "What about him?" "He was acting strange at the ball," Serafina said. "He seemed angry, more than usual." Thorn's eyes narrowed. "You think he's behind this?" "I don't know," Serafina said, "but he's the only one who would benefit from stopping the wedding." Thorn was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. "I'll look into it," he said. Thorn went to Edmund's estate the next day. He didn't tell Serafina. He didn't want her to worry. Edmund was in his study. He looked surprised when Thorn walked in. "Your Grace," Edmund said. He stood quickly. "What are you doing here?" Thorn didn't answer. He walked forward. His face was cold. "I know you're behind the threats," Thorn said quietly. Edmund's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me," Thorn said. His voice was dangerous. "I know you're trying to stop the wedding, and I know why." Edmund swallowed hard. "Why?" "Because someone is paying you," Thorn said. Edmund's eyes widened. He opened his mouth. Then he closed it. "Who is it?" Thorn demanded. "Who's behind this?" Edmund hesitated. Then he spoke. "Lord Cresswell," he whispered. Thorn's blood ran cold. Lord Cresswell, his father's old enemy, a man who had hated the Ashford family for decades. "Why?" Thorn asked. "Because he wants to see you suffer," Edmund said. His voice shook. "He said ruining your wedding would destroy you, just like you destroyed his son." Thorn's jaw clenched. "I didn't destroy his son. His son destroyed himself." Edmund said nothing. Thorn stepped closer. His eyes were hard. "If you or Cresswell go near Serafina or her family again," Thorn said quietly, "I will ruin you both. Do you understand?" Edmund nodded quickly. His face was white. Thorn turned and walked out. When Thorn returned to Greymont House, Serafina was waiting in the study. She stood when he entered. "What happened?" she asked. Thorn told her everything. About Edmund, about Lord Cresswell, about the threats. Serafina's face went pale. "Why does Lord Cresswell hate you?" Thorn was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. 5 years ago, Lord Cresswell's son Thomas fell in love with Isabel," Thorn said quietly. Serafina's breath caught. "Thomas pursued her," Thorn continued. "He tried to convince her to leave me, but she refused. She told him she was going to marry me." He paused. His jaw tightened. "Thomas couldn't accept that," Thorn said. "So he challenged me to a duel." Serafina's eyes widened. "What?" "I tried to refuse," Thorn said, "but he wouldn't let it go, so we dueled." He looked down at his hands. "I didn't mean to kill him," Thorn whispered. "But my shot was true, and his wasn't." Serafina's chest ached. "Thorn." "Lord Cresswell blamed me," Thorn said. "He said I murdered his son. He swore he would make me pay." Serafina stepped forward. She took his hands. "It wasn't your fault," she said softly. wasn't it? Thorne's voice was raw. If I had just let Isabel go, Thomas would still be alive. You didn't know what would happen, Serafina said. You can't blame yourself. Thorne looked at her. His eyes were full of pain. I've spent 5 years blaming myself, he whispered. Serafina's heart broke. She pulled him into her arms. Then stop, she said quietly. Let it go. Thorne held her tightly, his face pressed against her hair. And for the first time in 5 years, he let himself grieve. The next morning, Thorne and Serafina sat in the study. They were making a plan. We need to stop Cresswell, Thorne said, before he tries something else. How? Serafina asked. Thorne was silent for a moment. Then he spoke. I'll confront him, he said. I'll tell him to leave us alone, or I'll expose what he's done. Serafina's stomach twisted. That's dangerous. I know, Thorne said, but I don't have a choice. Serafina reached out. She took his hand. Then I'm coming with you, she said. Thorne's eyes widened. No. Yes, Serafina said firmly. If we're going to face him, we're doing it together. Thorne stared at her. His jaw tightened. Then he nodded slowly. All right. Lord Cresswell lived in a crumbling estate on the edge of town. The house was dark and cold. Ivy covered the walls. Thorne and Serafina arrived in a carriage. They walked to the front door. Thorne knocked. A butler answered. He looked old and tired. We're here to see Lord Cresswell, Thorne said. The butler nodded. He led them inside. The entrance hall was dim. The furniture was covered in dust. Portraits of stern-faced men hung on the walls. The butler brought them to a sitting room. Lord Cresswell was waiting. He was an old man. His hair was white. His face was lined with wrinkles. But his eyes were sharp and cold. Your Grace, Cresswell said. His voice was mocking. What a surprise! Thorne stepped forward. His face was hard. I know what you've been doing, Thorne said quietly. The threats, the break-in. I know it was you. Cresswell smiled. It was cold and cruel. Prove it, he said. I don't need to, Thorne said. I just need you to stop. Cresswell laughed. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, Thorne said, I'll tell everyone what you've done. I'll tell them you paid Edmund to humiliate Lady Serafina. I'll tell them you threatened her family, and I'll make sure you're ruined. Cresswell's smile faded. His eyes narrowed. You wouldn't dare, he said. Try me, Thorne said. Cresswell stood. He walked closer. His eyes burned with hatred. You killed my son, he said. His voice shook. And now you want to marry and be happy? I won't allow it. Serafina stepped forward. Her heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. Your son challenged the Duke, she said quietly. He made his choice, and it's not Thorne's fault that he died. Cresswell turned to her. His eyes were full of rage. You don't know anything, he spat. I know enough, Serafina said. I know you're trying to destroy an innocent woman to hurt Thorne, and that's not justice. That's cruelty. Cresswell stared at her. His face turned red. Then he laughed. It was harsh and bitter. You think you've won, he said, but you haven't. I'll find a way to destroy you both. Thorne stepped forward. His eyes were cold. If you try, he said quietly, I'll destroy you first. He took Serafina's hand. He turned and walked out. Cresswell stood alone in the sitting room. His hands shook. His face was twisted with rage, but he didn't follow. With Cresswell's threat neutralized, at least for now, Thorne and Serafina turned their attention to the wedding. It was only 3 days away. Serafina's mother came to Greymont House to help. She was thin and pale, but her eyes were full of joy. I can't believe you're marrying a duke, she said softly. She touched Serafina's cheek. You deserve this, my darling. Serafina's throat tightened. Do I? Her mother frowned. Of course you do. Why would you ask that? Serafina looked down. Because I didn't marry for love. I married for security. Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she took Serafina's hands. Love isn't always the beginning, she said softly. Sometimes it's the ending. Sometimes it grows. Serafina's eyes filled with tears. What if it doesn't? Then you'll still have respect, trust, partnership. And that's more than most people have. Serafina nodded slowly. Her mother kissed her forehead. But Serafina couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Because she knew the truth. She was already in love with Thorn, and she didn't know if he would ever love her back. The night before the wedding, Serafina couldn't sleep. She stood on the balcony outside her room. The air was cool. The stars were bright. She heard footsteps behind her. She turned. Thorn stood in the doorway. He wore a simple white shirt. His hair was loose. He looked tired. I couldn't sleep either, he said quietly. Serafina smiled softly. Nervous? Yes. She was surprised. Why? Thorn stepped closer. He leaned against the balcony railing. He looked out over the gardens. Because I don't want to fail you, he said quietly. Serafina's heart ached. You won't. How do you know? Because you care, Serafina said. And that's all I need. Thorn looked at her. His gray eyes were soft. I'm not good at this, he said. At feelings. At love. I know, Serafina said. But you're trying, and that's enough. Thorn reached out. He took her hand. His fingers were warm. What if it's not? He whispered. Serafina stepped closer. She cupped his face. Then we'll figure it out, she said softly. Together. Thorn's eyes searched hers. Then he leaned down, and he kissed her. It was slow, tender, full of something Serafina couldn't name. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. I'm falling for you, he whispered, and it terrifies me. Serafina's breath caught. Her heart soared. I'm falling for you too, she whispered back. Thorn pulled her into his arms. He held her tightly, and for the first time, Serafina felt like everything would be okay. The wedding was held at Greymont House. The gardens were full of white roses. A small chapel stood at the edge of the property. Candles lined the aisle. Serafina wore a gown of ivory silk. Lace covered her shoulders. Her dark hair was pinned with pearls. She looked like a princess. Her mother stood beside her. Tears filled her eyes. You're beautiful, she whispered. Serafina's throat tightened. Thank you. The music started. Serafina walked down the aisle. Her heart pounded. Thorn stood at the altar. He wore a black coat with silver embroidery. His gray eyes were fixed on her. When Serafina reached him, he took her hands. The priest spoke, but Serafina didn't hear the words. She only saw Thorn. His eyes were soft. His hands were steady. I promise to protect you, he said quietly. To honor you. To stand by you. For the rest of my life. Serafina's eyes filled with tears. I promise to trust you, to support you, to love you, for the rest of mine. Thorn's breath caught. His eyes widened. She had said it. Love. The priest smiled. You may kiss the bride. Thorn leaned down. He kissed her softly. The crowd applauded, but Serafina didn't hear them. She only felt Thorn's lips, his hands, his heart, and she knew. This was real. The reception was held in the ballroom. Music played, people danced, laughter filled the air. Serafina stood beside Thorn. She smiled at the guests, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept thinking about the vows, about the way Thorn had looked at her, about the way he had kissed her. "Are you all right?" Thorn asked quietly. Serafina looked up at him. "Yes, I'm perfect." Thorn smiled. It was small but genuine. "So am I," he said. They danced together. Thorn's hand rested on her waist. Serafina's hand was on his shoulder. "I meant what I said," Serafina whispered. "About what?" "About loving you." Thorn's eyes darkened. His hand tightened on her waist. "I don't know if I can say it back," he said quietly. "Not yet." Serafina's chest ached, but she nodded. "I know, and that's okay." Thorn looked at her. His eyes were full of something Serafina couldn't name. "You're extraordinary," he whispered. Serafina smiled. "So are you." They danced in silence. The music swirled around them. The candles flickered. And for the first time, Serafina felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Thorn and Serafina spent their honeymoon at a small cottage by the sea. It was quiet and peaceful. The waves crashed against the shore. Seagulls cried overhead. They spent their days walking on the beach. They talked about everything and nothing. They laughed. They held hands. At night, they sat by the fire. Thorn read books. Serafina sketched. It was simple, but it was perfect. One night, Serafina set down her sketchbook. She looked at Thorn. "Can I ask you something?" she said. Thorn looked up. "Of course." "Do you regret marrying me?" Thorn's eyes widened. He set down his book. He moved closer. "No," he said firmly. "Never." "Even though it started as an arrangement?" "Especially because of that," Thorn said. "Because it means we chose each other, every day. We didn't fall into this by accident. We built it." Serafina's eyes filled with tears. "I love you," she whispered. Thorn cupped her face. His thumb brushed away a tear. "I don't know if I can say it yet," he said quietly. "But I feel it, every day, and I'm trying to let it in." Serafina nodded. "That's enough." Thorn kissed her. It was slow and deep, full of promise, and Serafina knew he would get there, and she would wait. When they returned to Greymont House, life resumed. Thorn went back to managing his estate. Serafina took on the duties of a duchess. She hosted tea parties. She organized charity events. She visited tenants. People respected her. They admired her. And slowly, the whispers stopped. One afternoon, Serafina received a letter. It was from Edmund. Her stomach twisted. She almost threw it away, but something made her open it. "Lady Serafina, I owe you an apology. I was cruel. I was selfish. I hurt you because I was weak. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I see now what I lost. You deserved better, and I'm glad you found it. Edmund." Serafina stared at the letter. Her hands shook. She didn't know what to feel. Anger, sadness, relief, but mostly, she felt free. Because Edmund didn't matter anymore. Thorn did. 1 month after the wedding, something happened. Thorn was riding his horse through the woods. A storm was coming. The sky was dark. The wind howled. Thorn should have turned back, but he didn't. He was thinking about Serafina, about their life together, about how happy he was. He didn't see the fallen branch. His horse stumbled. Thorn was thrown. He hit the ground hard. Pain exploded in his side. He gasped. He tried to stand, but he couldn't. His vision blurred. The world spun. Then everything went black. Serafina was in the drawing room when the news came. A servant ran in. His face was pale. "Your Grace," he gasped. "The Duke. He's been injured." Serafina's blood turned to ice. "What?" He fell from his horse. The stable hands found him. They brought him back, but he's unconscious. Serafina didn't remember running. She didn't remember the stairs. She only remembered bursting into Thorn's bedroom. He was lying on the bed. His face was pale. His shirt was stained with blood. A doctor stood beside him. He was wrapping bandages around Thorn's ribs. "How bad is it?" Serafina whispered. The doctor looked grim. "He has a broken rib, a concussion. He lost a lot of blood." "Will he live?" The doctor hesitated. "I don't know. The next few hours are critical." Serafina's legs gave out. She sank into a chair. Her hands shook. "Can I stay with him?" she whispered. "Of course, Your Grace." The doctor finished his work. Then he left. Serafina sat beside the bed. She took Thorn's hand. It was cold. "Don't leave me," she whispered. "Please, don't leave me." But Thorn didn't respond. Serafina stayed by Thorn's side for 3 days. She didn't eat. She didn't sleep. She just held his hand. And she talked to him. She told him about her childhood, about her dreams, about her fears. She told him how much she loved him. She told him she couldn't imagine life without him. On the 3rd night, Thorn's eyes opened. Serafina gasped. "Thorn?" His eyes found hers. They were weak, but they were awake. "Serafina," he whispered. His voice was hoarse. Tears streamed down her face. "You're awake! Oh, thank God!" Thorn's hand tightened around hers. "I heard you," he whispered. Serafina's breath caught. "What?" "I heard everything you said," Thorn said. His eyes were full of tears. "And I need to tell you something." "What?" "I love you," he whispered. "I love you so much it scares me, but I can't keep it inside anymore." Serafina sobbed. She leaned down. She kissed him. "I love you too," she whispered. "I love you so much." Thorn pulled her close. He held her as tightly as he could, and for the first time, he let himself believe it. Thorn recovered slowly. It took weeks. But Serafina was by his side every step of the way. She helped him walk. She read to him. She made him laugh. And every day, he told her he loved her. One morning, they sat in the garden. The sun was warm. The flowers were in bloom. Thorn took Serafina's hand. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "About what?" "About love," Thorn said. "I thought it was a weakness, but it's not. It's a strength." Serafina smiled. "I'm glad you see that now." Thorn leaned closer. He kissed her softly. "I wouldn't have survived without you," he whispered. "Yes, you would have," Serafina said. "But I'm glad I was here." Thorn smiled. It was genuine, full. "So am I," he said. 1 year later, Serafina stood in the same ballroom where everything had started. But this time, she wasn't afraid. She wore a gown of deep blue silk. Her hair was pinned with diamonds. The sapphire ring gleamed on her finger. Thorn stood beside her. He wore a black coat with gold embroidery. His hand rested on her waist. People danced around them. Music played. Laughter filled the air. Serafina saw Edmund across the room. He was standing alone. His face was pale. His eyes were sad. But Serafina didn't feel anger. She felt pity, because she had everything, and he had nothing. Thorn leaned down. He whispered in her ear, "Are you happy?" Serafina looked up at him. Her heart swelled. "Yes," she said. "I'm perfect." Thorn smiled. He kissed her forehead. "So am I," he said. They danced together. The music swirled around them. The candles flickered. And Serafina knew. This wasn't just an arrangement anymore. This was love. Real, true, forever. And nothing could take it away.